Talking about corporate governance in South Africa, how has it changed pre-apartheid to post-apartheid?
The one obvious change that anybody who walks into the boardroom now will immediately recognize if they'd walked into a boardroom before 1994 is that the boardroom was almost exclusively white, exclusively male before 1994, exclusively sort of elderly. The boardroom now is younger, it is mixed, you find a lot more women in it, and particularly because women who would be of boardroom age, black women in particular, if I have to specify that, would typically not have had the executive experience to qualify them for the boardroom. So what you find is that you're finding black people get into the boardroom at a much younger age than their white counterparts. Corporate governance, obviously Enron happens. Post-Enron, the UK, the Cadbury Commission in the UK, the King Commission in this country modeled itself after the Cadbury Commission. And we end up with an incredibly rigorous corporate governance system. And also, you'd find that, let's go into the UN, for example, and the global sustainability issues. This country is a lot more embracing of some of those issues. And those translate into corporate governance imperatives for the country.
How has that evolved the corporate boards in South Africa?
From all male, a bit elderly, white, to the mix that I spoke about, very healthy mix. Average age, probably younger than average age of boards in most developed economies. Embracing the softer issues, so to speak, the issues of ethics, the issues of sustainability. It's creating a new dynamic on the board, the dynamic where the hard issues are almost starting to fight for space on the agenda with the softer issues. That obviously frustrates those who come into these boards through the traditional route, who are most likely in discussions and deliberations during a board meeting are likely to say, well, in 1952, this is what we did. In a conversation between me and so in 1985, confronting a similar problem, this is what we did. So the engagements with the issues on the board agenda is experientially based. Whereas you find these newcomers into this corporate governance space who lack, in many instances, the executive memory, because some of them may not even have had vast executive experience, tend to argue things based on first principles. And so there's a dynamic of the conversations and debates that have to contend with historical experience of individuals and also with fairly contemporary first principle arguments, and that creates a completely different dynamic.
What advice would you give for making the boardroom work?
Find a good chairperson. I don't think anything can beat that. Find a chairperson who would understand the dynamic of the day, who can pick that out and decide that I am going to protect the space for those who may not be as assertive as they ought to be, and not because they're not naturally assertive individuals, but just simply because they come out of a culture where the chairperson will say, so-and-so will speak, and so-and-so, and so-and-so. If you don't have a chairperson like that, you fight for space. And those with small voices tend to be shut out.
What are some of the issues to consider when going forward?
I think South African boardroom is an exciting place to be. I think it's a dynamic place. I think the combination of young and old, of experienced, non-experienced, I'll give an example. 8 years ago, a very experienced miner on the board of Impala Platinum says, women in underground mining, not in my lifetime. At the time, we had maybe 1% females who go underground, not females in mining who make tea and sweep the offices and so forth. 7 years later, Implats had 10, 11% women in the mining space. And he was a fair-minded enough person to say to that one board member who said it will happen in your lifetime, that you were right and I was wrong. And that for me is the dynamism of that space, of those who say, you know, this is a man's job. You know, don't talk to me about injuries and fatalities in mining, because mining is not for sissies. Mining is for big, strong men who know that there's risk for injury. And all of a sudden, you have a younger person who says that, but intrinsically, I believe that you can mine with 0 injuries. You can mine with 0 fatalities. It's a hard question. These two individuals approach it from 2 completely different angles, and that creates what I believe is an incredible, fantastic dynamic.